Billiken fans, welcome back to the Midtown Madness Podcast. It's Peter Hale and Zach Miller. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, as you're listening, you got something that you want to talk about that maybe our guest has to say that you don't agree with or you agree with. I don't know. Go ahead and comment down below. We've got two guests actually for you on this show. But anyway, we'll get into that. It's season 4. And once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men and a Garden. Pete, I consume a ton of internet content. I watch way too many videos on YouTube. And there's so many ridiculous ad reads. We don't need a new sock company out there, right? We don't need, a new meal delivery service that only sends you 5-star chef prepared meals. No. All we need is a bag of chips and 2 Men in a Garden salsa. It's local. It tastes amazing, and they got all the flavors to suit your individual salsa preferences. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery store or online at twomeningarden.com. Which, if you're particular about your salsa, that's where you want to go. Follow them on social media on Twitter and Instagram at 2mensalsa. Pete, so it's been a good week out of official Billiken news, I would say.
I think so, Zach. I think this week was overall a step forward, and that's all we can ask for, right? There's like baby steps forward, progress in the athletic program and the basketball program, wherever we can get it.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you go ahead and try this name because I got nothing. But the Billikens announced the new assistant athletic director for compliance and name, image, and likeness this weekend, and I think we both agree that this seems to be okay, we get it hire. We understand.
Yeah, I think this is absolutely the right message. And I think for one, the title alone, the new assistant athletic director for compliance and NIL. The and NIL is a new tag. This position previously was stopped at compliance, right? So that's where they're signaling that they understand it. And the hire, Zach, on paper, I don't know the dude, but he makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm going to take a swing at his last name too. It's Matthew Jakobsze.
Okay, I like that.
Jakobsze. But he previously served as the associate athletic director of compliance at Mizzou for 4.5 years. Through this past summer, he wrote Mizzou's NIL policy and consulted on the state's NIL legislation. He's had compliance roles at Eastern Michigan, Omaha, Northern Illinois. And then he was involved with the Uniform Law Commission's College Athlete NIL Drafting Committee, and he served on the board of directors for the National Association for Athletics Compliance. And since he left Mizzou, he's been serving in private practice. He's had his own legal practice throughout. He actually played soccer at Dominican University and got his JD at Northern Illinois, the first stop on his compliance career. So I think SLU had two great choices, or two choices, Zach, with this hire, to either get a good, experienced college athletics compliance person or to go get someone who knows as much as anyone could know about NIL. And I think they chose the latter here, and that's the correct move because, as you say, it makes them seem like they're serious about it, right? Like they're actually looking at this NIL thing and taking it more seriously than we had feared that they were.
Yeah, I wonder do we know what kind of law he practices?
No, I looked him up on LinkedIn, and I probably should have looked to see if he has much of a website for his own legal practice. But according to LinkedIn, he's had this ever since he basically left law school. So I don't know if it's just kind of a little on the side thing. It seems like compliance, that's a full-time job. So it's not like he's got a little legal practice in the back of a laundromat or something like that he's that he's doing. But it does seem like he's probably using that as a consultant or something on the side, right?
Yeah, I think so. And by the way, Matthew Jakobsze, if you want to come on the podcast, if we're not blackballed yet, come on out. We'll
Oh,
talk
absolutely.
NIL.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think this has? I really I wrote this, or you wrote this question. I think I probably posed it to you as well, and I know it was posed on Discord and
Right.
Billikens.com. And does this say anything about Travis Ford as head coach? Because again, I, I don't know. Like I told you guys, like, I'm done reading the tea leaves unless two men in a garden is picking up the tab. You
That's right.
know, and I guess I got to read the tea leaves now.
Yeah. So I think there's three ways to look at it. And number one is they're committing to NIL while Travis Ford is still here, right? So this is showing a commitment to him. They've got a more advanced person in the space in-house now, to help the school kind of get serious about it.
And I want to point out that this doesn't mean that, like, all of a sudden we're going to figure out a way to get hundreds of thousands of dollars every year.
Right. It's not a fundraising
Like, this
role.
isn't, yeah, this isn't a fundraising role.
Yeah,
This is a guy that knows how to, that knows the space. He knows the
sure.
rules. He can, guide people through it and figure out the best way to funnel the money through a triangle shaped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Exactly. So I guess the second thought would be, well, they're getting a person in place here who knows NIL so that when you hire the next coach, they know that this institution inside and out is serious about NIL in the
No.
space. To me, I kind of look at it the third way, which is I think it's neutral, right? It was
Yeah.
they had this position open. So they had to make the choice of do we give this an NIL focus or do we just hire another, run of the mill solid compliance person who's been at a few different schools, and just wants to come to St. Louis, right? So I think that regardless of Travis Ford's status, they probably had to make this kind of hire.
Yeah. I mean, this is when you talk. Oh, sorry. I never know. I've hit it a million times, but nobody's ever said anything. I've hit the microphone a
I didn't
million
hear it.
times,
I didn't
and
hear it.
nobody's ever said anything.
It's shock proof, man.
Yeah. It's like a disc man. Um, 30 seconds shock proof. All right.
Right.
No, I think it's just like we talk about how, like, optics and, like, doing the wrong thing, and we see it happen so many times. But this seems perfect on every level.
Right.
It seems like, I mean, like, if I want an NIL guy, I want the NIL guy who is, I mean, clearly they're doing something right out west.
Right.
They've got, their basketball recruiting, their football recruiting. And I hope this signals that SLU is interested in using the advantageous laws here in Missouri,
Correct.
and not just, going down the road of, oh, well, we're just going to hang in the transfer portal. Graduation is I really would like them to throw the graduation thing out the window, by the way. But I hope that this is entering the space and using it to our advantage in every way, and not just, saying, no, we're not going to do it that way because we're St. Louis University.
Right.
Let's go and do it in a way that's going to give us the maximum advantage possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the hire. And I do. I think it's we're gonna have you can't, this is it's funny because I talk about how SLU has a one-track mind a lot on things where they can't do more than one thing at one time. And I think this is a signal that they are doing something regardless of something else hanging in the air. It's regardless of an elephant in the room, right?
Right.
So it's not about who's the coach. It's about getting the best people to serve in the St. Louis University compliance space as possible.
Yeah.
Regardless of who's coaching men's basketball, women's basketball, swimming and diving, it doesn't matter. Speaking of men's basketball, because that's the podcast that we do. An 88. By the way, in this episode, we're going to talk to two guests Um, we're going to talk to, sorry for the tease, but we're going to listen to Dan Sullivan, Sully, former co-host or former host of the Talking Out Loud podcast, and then Connor Baily of the Black and Gold Fan Podcast. We're going to preview the Dayton VCU games. And we're going to talk about the St. Joe's game. We're going to talk about that Dayton game. And we're going to talk about that VCU game. And when we talk about this stuff, I think it's important that like we're talking about these games on a macro level. Like the game itself, great. Like that's fine. But we're looking at it from the last 7.5 years of basketball under Travis Ford and where this program is at and taking results and all of that sort of stuff. And you know, we're looking at how much money the program spent, how much Travis Ford makes, all this stuff. And it's all coming together. We can't just look at these individual games as being a game, a standalone game. So we're when we get negative on because it's going to get negative even though we did win, like you have to understand that it's based on facts from the past and events from the past. But Pete, I gotta tell you, this one was never in doubt.
No, Zach, and I think you cut off the actual score there. So I want to circle back to that because we did win this game 88-85 against St. Joe's on Wednesday, January 10th. You're right. Never ever in doubt.
Did I go on a tangent that totally took me away from something else?
I think you said the digit 8 and then went into that before getting to the score.
That's classic.
But yeah, Zach. So SLU was, I just got to say it, awful for most of the first half. Awful. We were down by as much as 20. I think it was 37-17, then 39-19. Managed to shrink the gap to 10 at halftime after going on a late 14-4 run using some combination. I think it was really just Meadows, Medley, Jimerson, Thames, and Bruce. Those five kind of saw us go on that run with Azawiro in foul trouble and that Meadows Medley backcourt. And then smartly, Ford stuck with that backcourt in the second half, along with Jimerson and some rotation of Azawiro, Zhang, Hargrove, and Dalger in the other two spots. So that backcourt, that Meadows Medley combination, it's worked other times this season. We just haven't seen it in a while. And St. Joe's turned out to be a pretty good matchup for them, you know, with their relatively small backcourt. And Zach, we do the improbable 55 points in the second half, getting extremely, extremely hot from outside. And man, did we need every single one of those 55 points too, by the way.
Yeah, no, we did. I wanted to talk about something because we talked about that awful first half where we go down as much as 20 and we see Sincere Parker enter the game. And he played about 4 minutes and he took a wild three. And I think that moment, I thought the game was over. Right. Like I genuinely, I was like, oh shit. Like we're down like whatever we were at. I mean, I think it was between 10 and 20 and he misses that three. And I'm like, oh no, like we're going to keep going to Parker here. And he's going to try to shoot himself back into a rhythm. And this game's just going to roll away from us. And it didn't happen because, Parker immediately came out and were you surprised that we didn't see him again?
No, I honestly, after that shot, he went back out. We didn't see him again. And my initial thought was he wasn't ready. And after the game, Ford said he felt uncomfortable.
And that shot looked uncomfortable.
Right. So he took him back out and didn't come back in. I hope that's not meaning like he's still actually really in pain and hurt and not feeling up to even playing at all. I think it's more just like he probably just got to the point where he's healthy again and maybe needs a little more practice before things are kind of feeling natural again, before he can kind of get in rhythm, because he really is a rhythm player. So I hope that's what the situation is. But yeah, that's what his status is. But no, after seeing the shot, I was just kind of like, oh, that looked wrong. Like everything looked wrong. So I don't think he re-aggravated anything, but he's just going to need a little more time.
Do you think that if that game is closer, do you think he hangs in there?
No, no, I
Okay.
don't actually.
No, I mean, I just was curious because if that say we're up by 5, right?
Right.
You leave him in to let him try to get a little more comfortable. But I mean, the score at that point, you're like, we don't have any space to any margin for error. And I mean, I, I didn't think we were going to ever in a million years come back. There was no way.
Maybe if it's really late and you're up 20 or down 20 and you kind of say like you feel up to it, you feeling okay, like that kind of thing. But no, I mean, if he said he was uncomfortable, I think no matter what, you leave him out.
The Billikens went 9 of 14 from 3 in the second half and a season high of 14 of 26 in the game. 14 was a high for Slew's record for 3-pointers at Shaverton. A lot of credit for that goes to Gibson Jimerson,
Yeah.
but even more credit, I think, has to go to Billy Lang, who might have had money on that game.
If I were A10 commissioner and I saw that game, I would seriously start questioning like if he did, because like every single person on like St. Joe's fans, Slew fans, neutral A10 fans, everybody on Twitter, everybody in their arena, everybody watching that game is like, what is this man doing? He's playing this 2-3 zone, and Gibson Jimerson is just on fire. You cannot let that guy just chuck up threes against you that open, that much space, that much time. I have no idea what he was doing, Zach. And my favorite part of this, right? Because like, unfortunately for me, I got to watch the whole first half. It was the same night that there was a Xavier game in town, and when that happens, my wife got season tickets to the Xavier game. She goes to the game, so these early start times kill me. Um, and in the second half, I'm trying to get my daughter down to sleep, so I've got an earbud in, and I've got my phone on the face down so that the light isn't bothering her, and I'm trying to sneak glances whenever I can. So it was only like to the point where there were 5 or 6 minutes left in this game that I actually got to really watch it again. And Billy Lang, I'd been listening, and even the announcers were like, they're in this zone, I don't know why, kind of thing. And he calls a timeout, right? Because now at this point, Jimerson has hit 5 for 5. He calls a timeout and they come back out in the same zone. It was like, I thought maybe now is the time where you like swallow your pride and pull the ripcord on this thing, go back to a man or do whatever you got to do to slow Jimerson and everybody down. And he didn't do it. And Jimerson hit another one after that. And I was just like, I don't understand what I'm seeing right now.
No, what he was doing there was he was anticipating the change from Travis on the offensive end. So he was preemptively changing back to zone.
Yeah.
He made the switch to man and then
Yeah.
switched back to zone within that timeout.
3-dimensional chess.
Yes. Jimerson finishes with 27 points, ties a career high with 7 3-pointers. 24 of his points came in the second half, and he passed Kwame Mitchell for 7th in all-time scoring. What are we going to do about all these records?
Asterisks or whatever with the
extra
years.
I mean, Jimerson almost has like, how many years has he actually played?
So this is his 4th full season, and it's his 5th overall season. He played like the first, I want to say 9 games of his freshman year before that injury, that foot injury. That
was it at K-State?
I don't remember.
Or it was in Kansas City, I thought. Anyway, no, sorry, go on.
Was it that game, the K-State game in Kansas City? Okay. So yeah, so like it's legit. So far his record is not affected by a COVID bonus year. If he came back next season, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but if he were to come back next season, that would be the one where you're like, okay, he's going to take our overall scoring record by a mile. And that's the one where you kind of get a little iffy with it. But he was great, Zach, but the whole team shot 14 from 15 from the line in the second half too, right? So you can't put him on the line, couldn't put anybody else on the line, and that was a big part of why we got back into this.
Yeah. Also a big part of why we were back into it was Dalger.
Yeah.
I think I have been sufficiently critical of Tim Dalger.
Hmm.
But he was scoring incredibly efficiently, at 15 points, and he moved the ball around well. And he does play better when he's passing, and he was looking to get, he was getting inside, and then everybody was collapsing on him because Dogger forces stuff up. That's what he does,
Yeah.
and he was keeping his head up though, and he was finding guys like Jimerson and TJ, and uh, the book's been out on him, and he did a good job playing against the book tonight, or not tonight, but uh, Wednesday.
Yeah, he really did. And I think you said it well there because like his best games, I think, have been the ones where he has the highest assist numbers for him, which is usually about 4 or 5, which is a kind of a signal that he's actually passing.
Yeah.
And he winds up taking better shots when the ball doesn't get stuck with him, trying to take it in too deep, taking contested layups, trying to take panic shots or whatever. He really was smart in this game, and yeah, it's my favorite kind of game out of him for sure.
Ezewiro finished with 12 and 6 despite foul trouble. Ford brought him back in with 2 fouls in the first half and played him early in the second with 3 fouls. Hey, if Travis Ford is going to get rid of the 3 foul, 2 foul bullshit, I'm with it. I'm cool. Let's go.
Yeah, same, especially if you need this guy and you're down by as much as 20. You close the half down by 10 and you got a little momentum coming into the second half. I thought it was smart to kind of stick with him. Played him with 3 fouls early in the second half, played him again with 4 fouls middle of the second half.
Yeah.
So, Brad's got to learn to kind of be a little bit smarter. I think a lot of those, it's not like he was getting bad calls or anything. He's just got to be a little smarter defensively. He gets himself into foul trouble, and if he wants to play bigger minutes, stay out of foul trouble.
One of the interesting parts of this game was the ending lineup in the first half and the starting lineup in that second half. Pete Bruce got the nod early there in the second.
Yeah, he didn't. He was solid here, Zach. I mean, he had 8 and 3 in 10 minutes. I think of those three, 2 were putbacks, offensive rebounds that he just tipped right back in. Those 3 rebounds. So he was solid here. He continues to show flashes of being skilled beyond his years, and he continues to show a big learning curve of an international freshman with a lot to learn. But he could really be a special player if he sticks around.
Medley had a triple nickel with 7, 5, and 5. And he, and I believe you mentioned it earlier, was that Meadows
Yeah.
Medley backcourt, Pete.
They seem to work best together. And a lot of people thought this was Medley's best game, actually, of the season so far. And certainly statistically, it's up there. I don't know what it is about having Meadows at the same time, and you can't pull off that lineup necessarily against every team
Let's
for
pull.
big
Let's
minutes.
try. Let's try.
But yeah, but against St. Joe's, they've got 2 6'2" guys at guard who aren't very big, and they're kind of lean, quick dudes. I thought it was a smart play to go to them. And Ford talked about it in the post game almost like he remembered like that he could do it and that it had worked before. And it was like, yeah, absolutely. That was the right call. And I liked that combination. I don't know what it is, but they seem to kind of bring out the best in each other.
Dude, I've been thinking that like we don't. Looking back, you even look back like Yuri and what's his name, Phil Russell, when they were on the team together, right? Or maybe I'm mixing up years, but like the Jordan Good, when we had multiple guys that could, the 1 and the 2 that could handle the ball, and we'd play them on the court at the same time. You had Yuri and Goodwin on the court. That was a really good combo. Like, let's get back to that, having 2 dudes. We don't need 5 dudes that can score. We don't need 4 dudes that can score. We need 2 dudes that can handle the ball and take care of it and move the ball. Like, I think 100% we should be running a 2-point guard lineup, honestly. That's quote unquote. I think I don't care what happens to our defense. Our defense already sucks ass.
Yeah. But also not turning the ball over, right? Because in the previous 4 games, we coughed it up 60 times, I think. And then in this game, we turned it over just 7 times. So we're still not forcing turnovers. I think St. Joe's only had 5, but But if you said before the game, would you accept 7 turnovers as a total for SLU? I would accept that every day against any
Yes.
opponent, any circumstances whatsoever. So that's absolutely another reason why you go with those two guys.
One of the worst parts of that first half was the rebounding.
Yeah.
And the Billikens started out getting rebounded, out rebounded 19-5. I mean, was it as bad watching it on TV as it was sitting in the arena?
It was incredible. I like and watching it too, it was like oh God, it brought me back to like grade school games where you go out there and immediately realize you're just so overmatched. And I was on that kind of grade school team where we were on the business end of a lot of blowouts, man, a lot of running clocks, a lot of our opponents putting up like college point numbers against like single digits. I'm not kidding, like bad blowouts. And it was the kind of thing, it was like watching that game where you're just like, they're bigger, faster, stronger, but also like
They have
every
more
little
facial hair.
yeah, exactly. Every bit of bad luck, right? Like how many of those rebounds were team rebounds? And they were just like bouncing off of fingertips or like catching guys on their heels. It was amazing to watch. And Ford was animated about it, right?
Yeah.
And like from what people said, Rammer and Earl were exasperated by it. It was hard to watch. It was genuinely
It
hard to watch.
that's one of those where I don't know if you can sit here and say that's a coaching thing. I think that to me is either you're not ready to play and your head's not in the game, or and with that amount of rebounds, I think it's got to be everybody, right? Nobody's ready to play.
Yeah, rebounding to me is like there's a few different things that could signal. It's like size, obviously one of them, athleticism, but really effort. Rebounding's an effort stat and like a I don't know, like just the teams that really prepare and know how to break you down and beat you. Like I don't know. This was the way that went was what told me early on or made me believe early on SLU just had no chance, right? Because like I don't think St. Joe's is like a special rebounding team by any means. They play a little bit small. Like they like to move the ball a whole lot on offense. They really like guys who are they like shooting at all 5 positions. Um, to kind of spread you out and everything. And because of that, they're taking so many threes, they're spreading out. They're just not a team that's coming up with many offensive rebounds at all. And so they're a decent defensive rebounding team, but this to me was just exasperating. I couldn't figure it out at all.
Um, the Billikens fouled up 3 with 5 seconds to go. St. Joe's hit both free throws and had to foul again. Medley hit both at the line, and St. Joe's had 4.5 seconds to tie, but the final attempt was short. Pete, I I would not have fouled. I don't know. I don't like fouling up 3, man.
So the funny thing here, Zach, is
But that's
we had
me, and it's against analytics and all that stuff.
yeah.
I just don't
So
like it.
we
But
wound up
I think it was the right call here, though.
we had wound up with a chance to do it twice, right? Because like
Yeah.
that first one was with 5 seconds left, which that's kind of a lot of time to do it because then we saw why. Because we foul and then yeah, he makes the free throws and now they have 4.5 seconds left, right? So we went from 7 down to 5 and then 5 to 4.5 and now they have 4.5, so you have a pretty big chunk of time. And they wound up with, had he not botched that last shot, in which he kind of did, right? I think the guy did not expect to be open and he was ready to like double pump, and then he kind of wound up being open and then just he shorted it because he was all out of rhythm and everything and ran out of time. But uh, because we kind of when we fouled at 5 seconds, and maybe we didn't have a choice. Maybe if we let it get down to 4 or 3.5, they would have had a look by then. But that gave them enough time to do it again, and then we didn't foul the second time, right? Like so that's kind of what surprised me is like, why do it once if you're not going to do it the second time? Luckily, everybody made their free throws and did what they were supposed to do. But I thought that was kind of strange, the fact that we did it once with arguably too much time and then didn't do it the second time. I do like it. I do like fouling up three. I know not everybody does, but I would absolutely. It's just when you're at 5 seconds, that's still a lot of time.
I think that last, I think 4.5 seconds was right. It's a full court run. I
Yeah,
like fouling on that first one. The second one I leave. But that first one, like the way they shot the ball, like
yeah.
they had missed so many in a row. Like I know your due is bullshit, but like they had missed so many threes in a row.
But they made that one late,
I
right? They
know.
made that late one right before we
Yeah.
did all this. And then you also have to consider this is a very dangerous 3-point shooting team.
Yeah.
And the fact that they made the late one, I think it would.
But two less time, 4.5 seconds. I was pretty happy with. Like, I don't like that inbounds. That inbounds to when Medley got his second free throws,
Yeah.
that scared the piss out of me,
Yeah, yeah.
man. Yeah,
Oh, I know.
I didn't like that at all. And I was kind of upset that we didn't have any plan for that, you know?
It was enough time left for me to worry that this game was going to overtime. I remember
Yeah.
having that thought and really thinking like, oh God, did we just play ourselves in overtime?
Yeah, I think I yeah, I just I don't know. That game, man. I refused to let myself believe that we were gonna pull that out because even up until like I think when Gibson when we took the lead, like if we would have tied
Yeah.
that game, I would have been like, nah, we're still not gonna do it. We took the lead. I was kind of like, okay, this is gonna happen.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I was screaming at Billy Lang at that point, just like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Like not like I wanted them to win, but I could almost like put myself in the shoes of a St. Joe's fan. Like, what is happening right now? Like we had this. Like this game was on a platter. How do you blow this? Yeah,
He's in
just
cahoots with
incredible.
Henry Hill.
No kidding. So they averaged 30.6 3-point attempts per game coming into SLU, and they ended up with 35 attempts on the game and made 12 of
And
them.
that would be that
So
would well 30 that would be 33 non-desperation three-point attempts.
correct. So they shot under their season average of 37%. It was more like 34.3%. So it wound up being like, coming into this game, we said St. Joe's could very easily win by 30. And for a while, it looked like they would, just because of the way they shoot threes. But it also, I guess overall, it just didn't wind up being the X factor for them, right? Like they shot a few more than they normally do. They shot a little bit under their normal percentage, but you're only talking about kind of the thinnest of margins there. It's just really, it was a lot of other things I think that kind of collapsed for them, mainly coaching. But yeah, Zach, I'm just really surprised at how SLU came back in this game after looking so overmatched, lethargic, just really bad and out of sorts for most of the first half. I think that late run in the first half gave them just enough hope going into the second half, I guess, and they were honestly pretty relentless after that. Played with a lot of energy the whole rest of the way, and they had 55 points to show for it. Um, Pretty incredible. And I thought it was a fun stat, Zach, that St. Joe's has still never won at Chaifetz Arena. And the only time they've beaten SLU in St. Louis was back in January 2006, our first season in the A10.
I think that's my new favorite thing is what the top three movies at the box office were the last time we won a game somewhere. Someone won a game
Yeah, right.
here. Uh Yeah,
Yep.
it was nice. It was nice to like St. Joe's doesn't scare me when they come here. Like Fordham doesn't scare me when they come here. But like we go away, I flip a freaking coin, man. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's frustrating.
Yeah,
Um,
any on the road, anything happen. I mean, it's just, I don't know. This is a hard one to explain. That whole thing
well,
about
you
either.
explained it early. You explained it on a previous episode.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the whole thing about like, are we going to lose by 30 or win by three? It's so funny that like it looked like it would absolutely be the former. But I'm glad it ended up being the latter. Is it possible to do both in the same game? Because it just kind of felt like we did.
Yeah, it felt like we lost and won.
Right. Right.
Um, I don't know. There was people got hyped over this win.
When the team is down and they win a big one, I'm not surprised when like the alums, like Claggett and Troy and some of those guys come out of the wood. They're relatively quiet on Twitter and other places, but then something like this happens and they really are hyped and they speak positively. I get that, but didn't you kind of feel like there was a little spiking of the football here from like maybe people who tend to support Ford?
Yeah,
And maybe in the direction of like us and West Pine Bills and Jack and some other people like that.
yeah, I definitely think it was, and I get it. Like there's a lot of I feel like they live in the moment, the game, but like you have to understand that there's so much more than this single game.
Yes.
There is there's what is that? 8 years of beating St. Joe's at home. If that ends, like I mean, there's 8 years of St. Joe's being a punching bag. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't change. That doesn't change people like that follow this Billiken program day in and day out. That doesn't change like with this year. I don't care what their non-conference record says. Billy Lang stinks on ice, and every one of his St. Joe's teams has been worse.
Yeah.
So like yes, we are very unhappy with the direction of the program under Travis Ford. The downward trend. We are ecstatic that the Billikens salvaged this game. But like don't come collecting receipts because you won a home game against the other last place team in conference. Um if you want to come collect a receipt, if this team makes the tournament, fine by me. The NCAA tournament, not the A10 tournament.
Right.
But like, and literally, I'll reach out first. I'll be like, here, congratulations. You guys proved me wrong. But like, until then, nothing has changed, and nothing is. I mean, there's nothing to suggest that anything has changed. We still had a terrible defensive showing. We still barely squeaked out a home win in conference where it's supposed to be very tough to win on the road.
Right.
If you want people to shut up, like win and win commensurate with the program's budget, win against a ranked opponent, win on the road in conference, blow teams out in conference. I'm sorry, I'm sorry this team doesn't necessarily have the juice behind it that last year's did, but we're operating based on the fact that now that we're in year 8, you need an NCAA tournament. The goal is the NCAA tournament. Is that fair? No, not to this specific team, but to this program. Yes, it's fair because the NCAA credits run out at the
Yeah.
end of this year, and you have to make the NCAA tournament once every 4 years. So it just feels like we're being gaslit into believing that this team can't make the NCAA tournament. Like
Right.
I to think it's unthinkable that we make the NCAA tournament. I don't, and we should be grateful for anyone. But like, it's like St. Joe's was good coming into this game. They looked good, but they're not. They're like this win is gonna sour. It's just gonna continue to sour.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I'm frustrated because I don't think that like I wonder what the goal is. Like there are no moral victories. There even a win is not a moral victory. Like this is not you go and beat Dayton. You've never beaten Dayton at UD Arena. You haven't beaten them in a decade. Almost a decade. Go beat them. That's a must win. It's a must
Right.
win because you haven't done it yet. The VCU at Siegel Center, it's a must win. It wouldn't if we are staring down the face of potential at large bid. If we're we talked with Sully, okay, he's gonna say something. He's gonna talk about how Dayton hasn't been knocking on the door of like an at large, after or by the time conference season starts. That's where we should be every year. Most years, I'll say most years. And if we're at that place, then you can have a year like this. But because you haven't lived up to expectations and the program budget and all that stuff, these are must wins now, and you have to win them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to add or take away.
Just a little bit, because I think you said all that really well, but I feel like I'm saying this every week now. These wins or these losses, they don't happen in a vacuum. This is all within the context of a larger season, a larger program narrative. This win took us from number 240 in the net rankings, 240, just to make sure people know that number.
Out of how many?
363, I believe.
Okay.
And it took us up to 228, right? 228 after this win, still good for last place in the A10. Now, after this weekend's games, SLU didn't play. Not everybody else, sorry. Most other teams played, but through Sunday, 230 is now where we are. Good for last place in the A10. The next team up is LaSalle at 214, and then everybody else is in the 100 or double-digit range, right? So we're still dead last in this league in the net rankings. We don't have many positives to take away from the season on a whole. Yes, one win can really feel like you're turning things around, riding the ship. Maybe it's a big momentum boost in the locker room. Maybe a lot of other positives come from this, but this is not the win nor the overall context at which you can turn around to people who have been critical of the program and be like, nah, 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 in our faces. Like, for one, like, we're fans. Like, we want this program to win. We don't want them to lose. We're glad we beat St. Joe's. So, like, just go away if that's like, if you're seriously going to come at us like that, like questioning our fanhood. But like, number two, like, are you serious? Like, do you have the memory of a goldfish? Are you not seeing the rest of what is happening from day to day?
No.
Like, enjoy the win, but don't start like turning around in other people's faces and acting like this is all that matters. It was weird to me. It was very weird. But look, I mean, like, look at the schedule coming up, and we've got a rivalry game on the road at a place where Travis Ford's never won, where we haven't won since January of 2014. It's going to be our hardest game for the rest of the season, and it only gets marginally easier after that in terms of a lot of road games, a lot of pretty good teams. So, like, I don't know. I think, like you said, like, if we make the NCAA tournament, go on another miracle run at the end of the season, great. But that to me is the only way to redeem any of this season, man. I mean, because this is 230 in the rankings of record, to me, is not acceptable with what we put into this program.
Do you want to take a swing at one of the top three movies on January 11th, 2014 at the box office?
2014 in January? Oh God. It was before I had kids, so I was still actually going to the movies. Probably not something with superheroes because it's January. 24. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Come on. You got a little girl over there and you didn't get Frozen.
Oh, was that when Frozen was happening?
Yeah, it was Lone Survivor was 1, Frozen was 2, and Wolf of Wall Street was 3.
Oh, wow. So those Frozen and Wolf of Wall Street would have still been hanging around for a while, I think, after their releases. But yeah, no, I don't know when things actually come out. Like, she doesn't care that Frozen came out 5 years.
It's brand new to her every other day.
That's right.
Pete, we kind of teased it earlier, and Gibson Jimerson apparently spoke with Stu Durando on Friday, and indicated he's strongly considering coming back for one more year and pursuing a second master's degree.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I had joked about this. I don't know if I joked about it on the show, but I joked about it with some people in text messages saying like, you think he'll come back for another year? Like, maybe because our Billiken Victory Fund, our NIL program seems all about retention, right? And they really know how to retain guys. Like, you never know, it's possible. And that was, I think, after a quite rocky start this season, and we didn't know what was going to become of all of this. And the fact that he just threw that out there, Zach, I was kind of surprised, honestly,
Yeah.
that came up this early in the season. But he said, I've thought about it a lot. I haven't fully decided, but it's an option. I've talked to Coach Ford about it a lot. This time in your life is hard to replicate. A lot of people want to get through it so fast. I'm kind of the opposite. We'll see at the end of the year. So to me, a lot of what he's saying right there, I mean, pursuing a second master's and not wanting to rush through this, I think he really loves it there. Like he likes SLU. We've talked
Yeah, who
about that in the
wouldn't like not
past.
having a job?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I enjoyed college as well, and if I could have afforded it or things had gone differently, I would have loved to go back for some more. But yeah, it's interesting to me. He really seems happy there, regardless of what maybe a lot of us might perceive as being what's going on this season. But what do you think about this? What does this say about what we could expect for next year, and does it say anything else about Ford or anything else for this program?
I don't know. We've been at this so long tonight. I feel like it's definitely I think Ford keeping Gibson would be beneficial to his case. And that's about it. I don't know what else. I mean, hey, look, if he likes like he's just coach. Like we've dealt with it with Isabel, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's your guy. Like I get it, but whatever. Go stay. Like you've been a great Billiken. I don't really I think, I think hanging on is you can everyone can hang on too long.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Do you think he would stay if Ford were let go?
No, doubt it.
I think the next coach would want him. I
Oh
mean, like it's
yes.
I think regardless
Yeah.
regardless of what you're trying to build, having that level of experience and shooting
Yeah.
is something that you cannot find, and certainly can't find for cheap these days. So I think he's going to be a valuable asset, if he really is in play next year for whoever. But yeah, I don't know. I would take him back.
Yes.
I know there's always that question, like we said earlier, about whether some of these scoring records and stuff deserve an asterisk, because like we'll get to the women in a little bit, but Kyla McMakin is now a top 40 all time women's college basketball scorer. And I know people want to throw asterisks up there with all the COVID bonus year stuff, but like, look, that's what the game is right now. People want to remove home run records from the 90s in baseball, but it's like that's what the game was then, and you have to accept whatever was happening within the context of the larger sport. And so I'm personally fine with it. And if he wants to come back and be our first 2,000 point scorer, I'm fine with that too. So
Uh Pete,
I say run it back.
you know what I always say run it back to? If I'm getting another jar of salsa. Run it back. Open up another one.
Zach, and I should have a little note on top of my jars of salsa of 2 Men in a Garden, because I'm down to my last one this week, and I saved the hot for last this time. I had a couple mediums. I had a sugar-free medium and a regular medium. Or no, sorry, I had a regular and a cantina style. And I blazed through those, and now I'm down to just the hot. So I think that's about time to put in another order. And I'm realizing it's been a while since I've had any of the fruit salsas. And if memory serves, hot mango's my favorite. But I think I got to retry the peach and strawberry. It's been so long. I'm gonna retry those. So maybe I'll do kind of in the next few weeks here. I'll do a lineup of all three of the fruits that they've got online. I'm probably not gonna do it in the next week or two, given what the forecast looks like. I don't want any broken, burst, frozen glass or anything like that. But I do want to get those again sometime soon. So maybe when it's not so freezing, I'll go back to them, and I can do it anytime at 2minuteagarden.com. Look at the upper left corner and you'll see that they still have $9.99 nationwide shipping and the same price as they always have. So check them out. Go get the fruit salsas or any of their other products, 2minuteagarden.com.
Pete, I put a diet A&W root beer in the freezer today and forgot about it, and it exploded.
Diet
Th-
A&W root beer.
Yeah, it just doesn't have, it's not as sweet as root beer. Like, but
Yeah.
it's nice.
But it still explodes in the freezer, just like a regular
it
one.
does. It does. Go figure. Let's kick it around the A10. Let's start on Tuesday the 9th. Actually why don't you give me Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday 10?
Yeah, and then I'll throw it to you for Saturday. This starts off with a weird one, Zach. Rhode Island
Well, hold
79.
up. This starts off with a weird one. This starts weird and stays weird.
Yeah, it's this A10 season is directed by David Lynch. It's I've lost the thread.
Wes
it's
Anderson.
confusing. It's entertaining.
It's bizarre.
Wes Anderson,
It's bizarre. It's
Wes
colorful.
Anderson is meticulous.
It's bizarre. It's like if Wes Anderson and David Lynch made a movie together.
I don't
Because it just makes absolutely
like.
exactly. It looked like the A-Time.
So it starts off this week with a Rhode Island beating Davidson 79-74. And I think Davidson fans are losing their minds at this point.
Apparently Rhode Island got somebody back or something, or added a guy. Was it the transfer or something?
I think you're right, but I can't off the top of my head.
We're too far from the Rhode Island
game for me to know.
Yeah, it's Rhode Island.
VCU held on against George Mason 54-50. And then Richmond beat Loyola 58-56. On Wednesday the 10th, the only game was UMass 81, LaSalle 65. That one was close for a while before UMass pulled away. And then on Friday the 12th, up in Pittsburgh, Dayton 72, Duquesne 62. That one was sold out, and I think it was a lot of Dayton fans in the crowd, with Sully leading the charge there to kind of fill it up. Why don't you take us around the league for Saturday the 13th, Zach?
Yeah, VCU escapes Tom Gola Arena and the ghost of Tom Gola, 71-65. George Washington, 83. Davidson, 79. And to your point, Davidson fans are about done with Matt McGill. By the way, we talked about how awkward, like things will have to be when Travis Ford, whenever Travis Ford's like, oh, talk about Davidson when they realize they got to get rid of Matt McKillop.
Yeah.
That's going to get real weird.
Yeah. Your dad's name is on the floor.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah. Right.
Rhode Island, 89, UMass 77. Apparently Rhode Island is doing things. I don't know.
Based on non-conference, none of these make any sense.
St. Bonaventure lets me down, dropping a home game to Fordham, 80-74. And then Loyola beats St. Joe's in Billiken style, 78-75. Richmond, 77. George Mason, 72. Round out the week in A10 play. Next up for the Billikens will be Tuesday the 16th at Dayton. That'll be tomorrow as you're listening. Friday the 19th at VCU. And we are going to kick it over right now to our interview with Dan Sully Sullivan to talk about the Flyers. And then after Sully, we're going to go right back over to Connor Baily to preview VCU. Billiken fans joining us to break down the Dayton Flyers for us. We have a returning guest, the rare non-Billiken. You keep your friends close, you keep your enemies closer. He's a UD grad. He's the former host. We ran him out of the business. Former host of Talking Out Loud podcast, and he's back in Pittsburgh doing his part to fill up Duquesne's gym with hostile fans. Sully, thanks for joining, man. Good to see you.
To be on with you guys. It's the first podcast I've done since March of 2023, which means I made it about 10 months. It was weird. I was like almost nervous today to get on, which is weird. Usually you just sit down and you start rambling about stuff, but I had some butterflies today, man. So you got me out of retirement. You start to work. I think I remember when we first did this show, your background was not as detailed and illustrious as it is now. Like Pete's still in the same like basement warehouse. He could be like in a jail somewhere, but you have really worked on the background. Like I keep mine professional now. I got a real life and job and all that stuff. We all got jobs. I don't know why I'm telling you guys that, but I'm really impressed by the background. I am.
Thank you. Well, you talk about butterflies, and I usually have butterflies starting about a week out from this game, and I'm just not feeling it this year, due in no part to Dayton. But we're kind of in the same place we were last year. Disappointed with our team's underperformance so far that season, and convinced our head coaches had ceilings on what they could accomplish. This season, those same coaches are in place. The programs have gone in drastically different directions. Where are you? Have you come around on Anthony Grant?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say like come around. And this is the first time I've, spoken publicly towards even Dayton fans this season. So, people kind of know where I stand on him. And I don't want to say tongue in cheek, but I've been like kind of quick to point out that this is the same Dayton offense and team that we typically have seen from Grant. But like all the things that have to perfectly fit in place as puzzle pieces to make Anthony Grant teams go in the right direction, those things are all happening, right? So, I mean, I'm always quick to give him credit when he deserves it. And right now is one of those times, right? Like the roster construction, he finally got it right. And in 2020, I'll be perfectly blunt, we didn't get it right then either. We just had Obi Toppin, right? Like Obi Toppin made up for a lot of mistakes. Like think about how slow Dayton plays, right? They were still like in the 200s of pace in the Obi Toppin year, and they scored like 10 to 15 points a game on the fast break. That's how slow they were. Like they were still in the 200s despite that. So this year, there's 6 teams in the entire country that play slower than Dayton, but Dayton is making 40% in 3-point land. They're not fouling and sending opponents to the line. They're not turning the ball over. And in inverse, they're getting to the line themselves a lot. When you talk about like a slow offense that's predicated in the half court, you need spacing and you need shooting and you need somebody down low to garner attention. That's how Anthony Grant offenses and teams work. Well, those are the 3 most important components of this Dayton team. They shoot well, they have spacing because of it, and they have Deron Holmes who garners attention down low. It's like everything that Anthony Grant, I'm sure, envisions that his teams look like every year, he finally got it to look like the way that it should, if that makes sense to everybody.
It does, but I'm wondering, how do they shoot so well? You're one of the most efficient 3-point shooting teams in the country. All 3 top scorers over 40%. Santos and Kobe Brea are near 50%. How do you go from like an average to below average 3-point shooting team to one of the best in one season when you've got so many of the same guys?
That's a great damn question. I've been asking myself the same thing for like 3 months now, dude. I'm like, I went down to Charleston this year and attended with my wife thinking like, all right, like if we get 2 games, that'd be great. And then all of a sudden, like this team's shooting the lights out. And I walked away from Charleston saying, hey, if we play that brand of basketball, this actually might be an exciting season. And here we are. I mean, Dayton's like a bottom 50 rebounding team in general right now. But when you're making 40% of your 3-pointers, and you're getting 60%, or what was it? 40% of Dayton's points are coming from 3-pointers. I mean, that's a recipe for success, right? You're shooting it a lot, you're making it a lot. I mean, all of a sudden, it's just like all these things that we wanted to happen. And I think you guys have seen, like, over the last couple of years, we complain about the same stuff as Dayton fans, like slow half court, last 10 seconds of shot clock, we're firing up 3-pointers. This year, they're quality shots most of the time, and they're going in. So it's like that one shoe that drops has really changed a lot of the outlook on the season, and it's changed the metrics in general, right?
So
Yeah.
a lot of
Goes Zach.
yeah, no. So it's funny. We've been leaning on two of the programs that we hate the most in trying to make a point to Billiken fans. And one thing when I talk about Dayton is that we've heard ongoing excuses from inside and out of our program, whether it be certain media personalities, about injuries SLU's dealt with all season, which are valid, but excessively leaned on.
Right.
Dayton's starting point guard Malachi Smith went down with a season-ending injury for the first regular season game. What is making them able to, avoid that being an issue?
They don't turn the ball over a lot. I mean, point blank, they turn the ball over a lot less, like 3 percentage points less. When you talk about a game, that turns your turnover percentage from 1 in 5 possessions to 1 in 6. That's a big deal. You're only getting 60 possessions in a game. So it's a lot. And I think that's a big part of it. I think Javon Bennett was there and ready to go and kind of step in. Now, I don't think he's probably the same point guard that Malachi Smith is, but to be honest with you guys, I mean, we haven't seen like a 100% Malachi Smith in like a long time now. So it's and I love the kid and all, and his brother played here, but I just don't see how he's going to be a productive player for UD ever again. I mean, he's gone down with 2 serious ankle injuries. He spent more of his career injured than he has healthy. I certainly hope he turns it around, but all signs are leading to him getting a fresh start, especially because this is our last year of Holmes. And, with the way the transfer portal is these days, it probably would even benefit him to just get a fresh start, see if he can, pull a Michael Penix Jr. type of story at Washington, right? And like have a career somewhere else, because he just, had so much bad luck here at Dayton. And I feel bad for him, but that, like I said, the answer to your question is they don't turn the ball over a whole lot, and they've been doing less of it at pretty much since the Cincinnati game, which, it just changes a lot of things for you when you're playing such a slow pace. Because if you're not turning the ball over, you're just giving the opportunity or giving the opponent just less chances in general. So it's simple math in that regard, right?
So do you think there's much of among the fan base of like, oh God, imagine how good we'd be if we had Mal Smith this season? Or are they kind of like where you are, where, it's probably just not ever going to work out for him here?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like, originally when the injury happened, because it was on night 1, people were like, oh my God, like, dude, we're screwed. And I'm like, we played half the season without him last year too, right? And Grant, and I'll give Grant credit for that too. Like, Grant and the coaching staff did not expect him to play a full season healthy, or else they wouldn't have gone out and tried to get Javon Bennett, right? Like, they had a backup plan for if Malachi Smith went down and then the worst fears were realized. So I will give the coaching staff credit for that, because it's like, you had a guy that got hurt at the end of 2022. You had a guy that got hurt in November of 2023 season, and then this year he's not going to play at all. So, think about that from a player perspective. When he comes back, he won't have played competitive basketball in like 18 months, I mean, that's tough. That's going to take some time, and I just don't know if Dayton is the best place for him to do it.
You're on mute, Zach.
Oh, classic muting. That's great. I'm really back on a podcast now, man. I love that.
No.
I'll get a little ice whenever I take a sip, and I don't want to crunch in anybody's ear. Deron Holmes, we know who he is. He's leading Dayton with 18-7. What about Nate Santos? I'm getting tired of hearing this guy's name.
Yeah. He, you're kind of trying to figure out the X factors at this point in the season, right? Because like right now, Duran in conference play is going to give you 15 and 10, like pretty much every night. The big question mark I think for Dayton right now is like, where do they get the rest of the scoring? Because Cheeks did it against UMass, he scored 11, and then against Duquesne, Duran had 33 and nobody scored in double figures. I can absolutely guarantee you Dayton cannot sustain that kind of game, right, in the A10 conference. They'll slip up against somebody. Like somebody was waiting for me to have like a receipt, but I said like I hope everybody's starting to realize the talent gap right now between Dayton and most of the A10. And people were like, "Oh, write down the receipt." And I'm like, "Listen, if Dayton loses in conference play, it's not going to be because there's the talent gap like all of a sudden minimizes. It's going to be like they can't hit shit from 3-point land. Somebody is able to minimize Duran to like 15 points or under, right? But I think like, what's up with Nate Santos? We don't really know yet because, he's had a couple of games where he's absolutely gone off. But then, like recently, he's kind of been a little quieter. Like he had 26 against Grambling State, and since then, Dayton's played 7 games. He's only scored in double figures twice. So it's like at the beginning of the year, I'll read this off: like Northwestern 18, LSU 18, St. John's 22, Houston best team in the country. He scored 14. He was putting up big numbers, and now all of a sudden he's cooled off a little bit. So I'm not really sure what to make of it. Like he's a guy that's going to thrive at the 3-point line, but really where he's helping Dayton if he's not going to score is rebounding, because Dayton's frankly like not a great rebounding team, and that's going to be their one weakness. And he's probably the only guy that shows like a real tenacity to get after the boards. Like Holmes is kind of a rim runner. Like I'm not going to say disinterested, but he's about as interested in rebounding as Obi Toppin was. Like he would rather get up court and start the offense again. So I think Santos, when all is said and done, the Flyers are going to be thankful they have him on the rebounding front. And if they get 10 points a night from him, that's just gravy,
Yeah. We've talked about a lot about your offense and kind of what's going right there, making shots, not turning over, but your defense has also been pretty excellent this year, holding teams to low percentages, shooting. You're not putting guys on the free throw line at all. What's been the key at that end of the floor?
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier in the podcast, but it's the fouling thing. Like Dayton is just not sending teams to the line. And they're, we're not getting like a ton of turnovers. I mean, Javon Bennett's good for 1 or 2 a night, but the big difference for Dayton on defense is that they're being physical and they're not putting teams on the line. Like right now, there's only 3 teams that average less opposing free throws than Dayton, right? Which just means they're going to play you physical, and then you can't get some extra buckets here and there, right? And I think I try to emphasize to people, like, this is where the fringes matter in college basketball, right? You go up 4% in your 3-point shooting, and then you come up, 4% in your ability to limit teams from going to the line. And then yourself, you're getting to the line like 2%. Well, guess what? Now you're scoring more in the 3-pointers. You're giving up less points from the line, and you're scoring more points from the line. Like, and that's, like I said when I started, like, that's the huge difference in Dayton being 13-2 versus Dayton being like 10-5, and we're having the same fucking conversation I had the last 3 seasons, right? It's just those little margins that make a huge difference. And so, I mean, I think to answer your question a little bit more succinctly, Dayton's playing kind of the same style of defense they've always played under Grant, but now with that ability to limit, people from getting to the line, it's kind of changed everything. And they're not like a stellar defensive team by Grant's metrics, right? I mean, in his time here at Dayton, he's had 4 teams that were better defensively than this one. But, when you look at the whole picture, it looks a little bit more impressive because they're able to score more efficiently now, right?
Right.
You're throwing out big words at me right now, and I don't understand them, so I'm going to take that as disrespect. Watch your mouth.
That as disrespect.
Watch your mouth. No. Dayton's win streak is now at 10. Who has the best chance of ending it, and why is it not St. Louis University?
not because Dayton goes to Tom Gola Arena next week on Tuesday. So I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but like I saw that I was looking, I think I put something on Twitter where I was like, oh, like if Dayton wins at Duquesne, they'll be ranked. And then like you got SLU and Rhodey, which, you know, we can all be honest with each other. Those are games Dayton should win. And then I look down the schedule and I'm like, fuck. Like, we got to go play at Tom Gola Arena where Dayton just cannot win. Anthony Grant's only won there one time. Archie Miller
That's
never
crazy.
won there. Like,
they don't. It's so weird. Like,
so
like,
stupid.
I can't even picture Dayton playing at Tom Gola Arena. Like, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look like.
We normally
kind of similar.
We normally win there, but it's always a weird game, right?
It
like we've won some squeakers, we've won weird games there.
I don't even believe in ghosts, but if you told me Tom Gola Arena was haunted, I would believe that. Just with the amount of nonsense that happens.
I'll drop a nugget. I mean, I know it's a SLU podcast, but this shit is funny. Like, Dayton's played 10 games at LaSalle, right? Since they started playing in the conference. You guys want to take a guess at Dayton's record in 10 games at LaSalle? Go ahead. I'll give you the first shot.
I'm gonna say 2-8.
Yeah,
okay,
that was I had 2-8.
They're 3-7. So the 2020 team, if it wasn't for them, you guys would have been dead on balls accurate. But yeah, I mean, it's so like we're laughing about it, but it's so serious. Like when we go to play that game, Dayton will probably be 5-0 in conference, and I will be sweating the entire day. Like, because that is just the game that trips us up every year. Like, we don't have trouble at Richmond. We usually play pretty well at Bonnie's, like VCU even. We traded blows with VCU playing in their building. We own Davidson, own George Mason, but like at LaSalle, dude, that's a house of horrors for us. Always has been.
Speaking of house of horrors, this will be the Billikens haven't won at UD in a decade.
Is that right? It's been a decade. I pulled up the series before we jumped on. I'm flabbergasted. I gotta be honest with you guys. Like, I know that Dayton has kind of had the better hand in this series, but have you guys looked up the record since you guys joined the A10 of what the Arch Baron Cup record is? Like, you guys happen to know?
I used to know this. It's not great, and lately it's been really bad.
Yeah, so 37 games. The Flyers are 24-13 in those games.
Well, that's all time though, right? Just
since joining the A10. That's 05-06 season.
So I'll give
37 times. How is that?
37 times.
Wow.
Yeah, just about twice every year, and we're going on 20 years now. Yeah.
I'll say that there's 4 in there that we can all write off the books. And that would be 15, 16, 16, 17.
Yeah.
So, dude, I don't know. It's really frustrating, I think. Because that to round out the decade without a win at Dayton would be just like that. That's pressure that is probably not fair in some ways to put on Travis Ford. But like, bro, you're here.
I'm looking back. March 5th. I was looking at home games that SLU won. Okay, and the March game was a tournament game. So yeah, this is wild. The last game they lost at SLU was 2014, January 11th. That is unbelievable.
Right.
You got me there with that trivia. I wouldn't have come up with that one.
So then if we see how Dayton is likely going to win this one on paper, that's fairly obvious. But if they don't, if by some miracle to us, Dayton stumbles in this game, SLU wins this game, what are the things that will have gone wrong?
I think really similar to what happened in the UMass game, right? Like, Dayton got up and then they kind of let I'm sure you guys didn't like tune in for Dayton UMass, but if you did,
I have 3 TVs, something had to be on one of them.
Yeah. Like, Dayton got up big on UMass and then just went cold. If UMass hadn't shot 3 for 22 from 3-point land, they probably could have snuck away with that game. But what will have went right is that St. Louis out rebounds Dayton. They actually are able to get to the line, and we have a cold night shooting. I think all 3 of those things have to happen because UMass like wall up Dayton on the boards. I'm looking at it right now. It was 45-33 and turnovers were 8-12. There was no huge difference there. But like we went into a drought in the second half, and every time that UMass like almost got over the hump, they just couldn't hit that bucket to get them there. So yeah, I mean, it's plausible. Like if you see any team beat Dayton in conference play, they probably had a cold night shooting and they probably got out rebounded bad. And those two things probably happened, and then something else, didn't go their way. But if I had to guess, we got a lot of games to play. That's how Dayton's going to be beat. Cold night shooting.
All right, one last question. Or you got one?
Well, I was just going to say we really don't force teams to turn it over at all, and we really don't defend the three either. But yeah, the you want to take this one, Zach, or do you want me to?
Well, no, I actually had another one.
All right, go for it.
Well, so I was going to ask you who you're in Travis Ford's Oxford's. Actually, I think he wears forces on the sideline now. Without the no suits anymore. Who are you running up against Duron Holmes tomorrow? Or not tomorrow? Tomorrow. Screw it. That would have worked perfectly if I wouldn't have acknowledged it.
Yeah, I mean, for St. Louis, like it's tough because I know you guys have kind of like a wing heavy lineup. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't everybody between like 6 foot and 6'7" in your lineup, like for the most part? And you got like one big dude,
except for two small guys, two smaller than 6 foot.
Yeah, but don't you have like one huge ass dude on the lineup against
we do, yeah, and he's recently activated, so yeah.
Okay. I mean, that probably won't work that much because like you can't put a freshman up against Duron. Like he's a professional college player. You know what I mean? Like he's got old man moves in the college game now. But Duquesne tried to trot out that European guy, and like he was in over his skis. Like I was sitting down pretty close to the court, and there was so many possessions when he was just like shoving with his hands out and they were just letting it go. So I mean, for St. Louis and like the style, and I kind of know how Ford likes to play it, like they're just going to have to constantly double. And if I'm Ford, I'm subbing guys a lot. Like I'm just keeping fresh legs so that you can constantly have pressure on Duron Holmes. And that's going to open up things, and you're just going to have to live with that. But like the best, like if I'm Travis Ford, like you said, I am doubling Duron Holmes and making his night really hard and just force Dayton to beat me from three. Because from where I'm sitting, if I'm an 8-8 team, that's my best shot. Like, let's just let Dayton air it out from three. Maybe we catch him on a cold night, right?
That's probably the way we're going to go with it too, to be
honest.
honest.
It's like you have to, because Duquesne just had no plan for Duron. And there was some guy that was around me who was like, oh, like when Duzon's been like matched up one-on-one, like he's been pretty solid. And I turned around. Sometimes like I'll let stuff go, but this time I turned around and there was like 5 minutes left. And I go, dude, Duron has 28. I go, no one's matching up well. Like he's absolutely dominating this game in every way that you could. Right. So yeah, I mean, A10 teams are taking notice and they'll all have like a way to defend him. But for SLU, I think that's the answer.
So I've got one last question for you because I'm going to be going up to this game. And the Dayton forecast is calling for low single-digit temperatures, maybe even 0 or negative by the time this game's over. What kind of crowd do you expect for this one based on that kind of weather? And do you think the Flyer faithful are still going to fill the place for the lowest rated A10 team on a Tuesday night, or is that just not worth it under the circumstances?
Man, our fan base shocks me. Like, remember last year when we had this conversation and like I was kind of, getting on the soapbox about like that we should be better, right? And I always say like Dayton's identity as a program is the building and the fans. And like I want it to go back to being winning basketball, dominating the conference. And hopefully this season, we're taking steps towards that. But it's a long-winded way of saying I'm pretty sure we're still getting 12-5. Like there will be less than 1,000 empty seats in this game because the Flyers are playing well. And like, don't forget, Pete, that we haven't really had competitive basketball in UD Arena in January and February in like 4 years now. 2021, 22, 23, like that was why I got so pissed off and like why the season was just so maddening because, we were playing for Brooklyn, playing for March by the time the conference season started. And like, that's why I give so much credit to these fan bases. Like UMass and Duquesne and Mason. It's like, I have no fucking clue how those guys do it because like they haven't played a meaningful game in January or February in like a decade. And those guys are still like, I'm fired up to beat URI. And I'm like, for what? Like, so you can be the 7th seed instead of the 10th in the A10 tournament? Like, again, I give them a ton of credit because like when my back was against the wall and I could see that Dayton was only playing for like A10 tournament seeding, man, it changes everything. It changes like how much you want to follow the team, how much excitement there is. But yeah, we're back, man. Like the fan base, I can tell SLU people like the fan base is just excited to have something to be excited about again, right? And you can tell. Yeah, and that's it, man. Like that's what we talk about. Like it's nice to be excited. It's nice for me to go on Twitter and not have to like yell and scream about why we suck. You know, it's like everybody's just cool. And if we lose a game, there'll probably be reasons why. And it's like these seasons are what make the whole ride so much more enjoyable, right?
Must be nice indeed.
I know. All right. All right. Before I
didn't mean to bum you guys out.
No.
It's nice. Nice to be back. That's all.
Yeah,
you guys will be back. You know, got to get rid of Ford probably, but you'll be back eventually.
Did you say that last time we talked? Because I swear you did.
Ford,
yeah.
We ended it on the same note last year.
All right, we gotta let you go. We gotta talk to Connor here from VCU. Sully, thanks, buddy.
It's always a pleasure, guys. Take care. See ya.
Thanks. Good luck.
Yep.
Billikens fans, welcome on another special guest for you. It's Connor Baily. He's a returning guest, a VCU grad and co-host of the Black and Gold Fan Podcast. He joined us last year to talk VCU before they played SLU, and he's back once again to help us break down one of the top 3 A10 programs nicknamed the Rams. Connor, thanks for joining the Midtown Madness. What's up, dude?
What's up, guys? Appreciate Zach and Peter having you guys had me on again. I know I was on last year. It was before our game at Shea Feds. I think it was the first Friday 10 game of February last year.
Yep.
It was a great time. I appreciate you having me on again. And it's been a little different season for both our teams. But hey, it's conference play, and you know, it's A10 basketball, so I'm excited.
That makes one of us.
Yeah, I know you guys had I think it was last Monday. It was an eventful Twitter day. I'll be honest, it was interesting while I was at work, but I imagine you guys have discussed that in full detail at this point, so it's not a whole lot much I can say.
No, it was interesting in a lot of different ways. So you guys got a new coach, and it seemed like you got the guy you wanted. Where do you guys stand now on Ryan Odom?
So that's a good point. First off, you said the guy we wanted. I was actually on the 3 Bid League podcast. This is Rhodes went to Penn State. It was the week between the Elite Eight and the Final Four. I was on their podcast when it was pretty obvious he was going, and while I was on recording with them, that's when Odom was officially announced. It was like that Wednesday of that week. But our athletic director, Ed McLaughlin, has been there since my sophomore year, which happened to be our first year in the A10, 2012, 2013. Was an assistant AD at American when Odom was an assistant there. So that's that relationship. So that's kind of why it happened so quickly. They had a previous relationship, but Odom's been good. So far we're 10-7 overall, 2-2 in the A10. And for your listeners, for record, we're off this whole week. So our record coming into Friday's game against St. Louis will be 10-7 and 2-2 in the A10. But he was kind of hired as this offensive, almost kind of this young offensive mind, kind of like a Will Wade, Nate Oates type that's really into analytics and such. And our offense has been better than in the Mike Rhodes era. I think SLU fans probably noticed over the last few years. Defense was always elite at VCU, always top 15 for the last 6 years.
No, you guys never talk about that shit.
Offense,
you guys don't play.
Story.
Yeah, no, you guys are what?
Offense.
Pete, this is surprising you too, right?
Yeah, no, I don't recall any wins last year where they had like 47 points.
Yeah, it was at times it was frustrating, but our offense was not great in the Rhodes era. The best offense was the 2021 season when Bones Highland was A10 Player of the Year. It was like 122 on KenPom. Right now, our offense is 113, so not great, just outside the top 100, but still solid. But it's been a different style. For the better part of the last 3 to 4 coaches, we've had a style we've been known to be a school with athletes up and down the roster. And not saying we don't have athletes. Toby Lawal, a sophomore for us, has a 48-inch vertical leap. Zeb Jackson, one of our starting guards, is a great athlete, but he brought 2 transfers, Max Scholga and Sean Bairstow, who are international players. And not saying international players aren't good athletes,
they can't
but
be
typically,
athletes. What's up, man?
but typically it's more about a finesse game. So they're 2 of the guys he brought from Utah State, who've been Scholga's been great for us this year. Bairstow missed the first, I believe it was 11 games. He only played 2 games in the non-con, and now he's played in all 4 HN games. So there's been a lot of growing pains. Heck, Orlando, on Thanksgiving night, Iowa State, who's a top 10 net team, we led by 14 at the half, led the whole game, ended up losing by 4. Boise State, a team who was in the top 60 of the net, we were neck and neck the whole game, ended up losing by, I think it ended up being 4 or 5. Memphis, who's a good team this year, a top 50 team, we went to overtime at home, and this was without 2 highly rated players in Sean Bairstow and Joe Bamisile, but we also lose to Norfolk State at home. We lost to McNeese State at home the first game of the year. Right. Will Wade couldn't coach in that game. And honestly, I was on my honeymoon in that game. And when the committee doesn't count games where players are injured, I don't count that game because I was on my honeymoon that week. So just put that for record.
I got to ask you though, hold on. I got to ask you, because you mentioned a name that I'm sick and tired of hearing. And Pete knows I'm sick and tired of hearing.
Is it Joe Bamisile?
I fucking can't stand that name. Where do you stand on, because I've pontificated on many occasions about why the immediate eligibility waiver, as I think it should be called, is utter nonsense. Like, I just think it's ridiculous, this pearl clutching over the fact that a guy can't play. And I said the same thing about Ezewiro for SLU. Like, I didn't care.
Was he Georgetown transfer? Was he the guy that transferred from Georgetown?
Yeah. Yes. So I think it's ridiculous that, like, this whole idea of like, oh, they transferred to be closer from home. So like, oh, I got to play immediately. It makes no sense. It's nonsensical in my head. I don't know. Where did you stand on the Joe Bamisile situation and the waiver situation, I guess?
So I'll start with the waiver, and then I'll mention, for your listeners, kind of what we've seen from him. So our podcast, Black and Gold Fan Podcast, like you said, we have 4 members, and one of our members, myself and Caleb Jones, one of my associates, we were kind of in the stance that we just didn't see him getting eligibility. We were early on, like in November, it was constantly, oh, Sean Bairstow and Joe Bamisile are out, that kind of thing. And we're kind of annoyed by it. We were like, well, Bamisile's not going to play. Bairstow's going to come back. He's going to come back. But we were kind of under the impression that he just wasn't going to play. And then there was that kind of legal, it was like in a random county in West Virginia that, oh my God, that the whole law kind of passed. So to me, I was like, oh, sweet. It's another shooter. I'm happy. I'm happy he gets to play in front of. I mean, I live about 20, I grew up 20 minutes south of Richmond, and he went to a high school that we played against. I played baseball against and such. So I think it's cool that he gets to play in front of his family. At the same time, it's like transferred 3 different times. I'm kind of like, it's a luxury that he's playing, I guess. But like, I was kind of surprised, honestly, when it happened. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of. This isn't specific to him. This is just. It's not specific to him at all. But it's just. Some of this kind of portal and such, it's kind of I've lost track of like rosters, and I watched college basketball. If I wasn't married, I think I'd watch 100 hours of college basketball a week. It's down to 50 because I got other stuff to do every now and then. But you mentioned Bamisile. He balled out in his first few games. He played against Temple in the non-con, 3 of 8 from 3. Maryland Eastern Shore, 3 of 7 from 3. Against Gardner Webb, 2 of 6. So he was shooting 38% from 3 in the non-con. In conference play, 1 of 5 versus Bonaventure, 2 of 4 versus GW, his former team. But in the last 2 games, 0 for 4 against Mason, 0 for 2 against LaSalle, and he's only played 12 and 14 minutes in those games. So Odom's kind of, with a new coach, and you guys have gone through this before, new coach, he's trying to figure out his rotation, and Bairstow hasn't quite cracked it the last 2 games. He's only played 12 minutes for a guy that was, I think he was, second or third team all A10 2 years ago. So he's someone who Odom hasn't quite mastered the rotations yet.
Right. So I do want to ask, because like I think a lot of SLU fans, and probably a lot of college basketball fans in general, still associate you guys with that Havoc style. And I'm wondering, Odom's defensive system, we've talked about his offense and kind of how that's maybe improved from prior seasons, but I'm curious about his defensive system. What's your defensive identity now as a program, would you say?
I don't know. That's a great question. Here's a stat for you.
Neither do we.
Yeah, here's a stat. I know there across A10 fans and national. You can't watch it. It doesn't matter what telecast, whether it's Friday 10 games or CBS Sport Networks or USA Network or ESPN Plus. You're going to hear the word havoc. You've probably heard the word havoc. You're going to hear it Friday night. If it's Mike Corey and Dalen Cuff, you're going to hear the word VCU's defense. It's like ranked like 110 right now, so it's not
Right.
great. In the last 5 years, so years 2 of 6 for Mike Rhodes. VCU was always top 25 in defensive steal percentage per Ken Pom. We're 192 in defensive steal percentage right now. So we just haven't. We don't have an identity now. We're top 20 in blocks per
Right.
Ken Pom right now. Christian Furman, a sophomore who was on VCU's roster last year, one of the 4 guys that stayed at VCU. He didn't play much last year as a freshman. Last year we had Brandon Johns Jr. and he was a super senior from Michigan, or 5th-year senior, and then Jalen DeLuce, who transferred to Georgia. Those were the 2 big guys, and he would get some scratch, maybe 2-3 minutes a game, but didn't play much. But he's got a very high block percentage. And Toby Lawal, a sophomore who was on VCU's roster last year, stayed. He also has a high block percentage. So we're getting blocks. Steals is just we've been so accustomed to seeing between Ace Baldwin, Marcus Evans, De'Riante Jenkins, Bones Highland, Jaden Nunn, a bunch of guys would get a lot of steals every game. That's not happening this year. So that is an identity that's not there. I'm not going to call the team soft by any means. They're my team. They're still playing good basketball. It's still because I don't know that. I said I don't know what the identity is. It's mainly because I was so used to a certain brand for a while. And now it's just okay. It's the defense is like around in the 110 area of Ken Pom. So they're still trying to find it, if that makes sense.
It does, but I'm also wondering like how much of that is affected by pace, because you guys are in the bottom 10% ish.
It's definitely in the 300s
in the
tempo.
nation, yeah, in terms of like possessions per game, and how many of these things that you're not seeing the numbers really pop out. How much of that is affected by the pace at which you're playing?
I think that definitely has an effect to it. In VC's previous system, especially in the Shaka Smart and Mike Rhodes systems, Will Wade's was a tad different. It was a little more balanced. It wasn't elite defense, but it was we were top 60 in both offense and defense in Ken Pom both years he was coach there. You make a valid point, Peter. I just like I've been kind of begging for the team to try his zone defense, especially the St. Bonaventure game. It was the first. I think it was the night. It was the Wednesday of opening week. St. Bonaventure shot 12 of 22 from 3 against us, and I was just sitting here. And I mean, obviously they couldn't miss a 3, but against GW, for example, second game of the year, James Bishop had 28 points against us, balled out against us. Our guards were getting beat off the dribble the whole game. And I think everyone's kind of begging, hey, try a 2-3 zone, man. if you're getting beat off the dribble the whole game, because like Max Scholga, for example, I don't think he's a great defender, good scorer, but not a great defender. And I'm almost kind of like, hey, try a 2-3 zone. If guys are going to hit 26-foot threes, it is what it is. But I wish I had a full answer. It's something we've kind of discussed on our podcast. We still don't really have an identity defensively. Tempo, you make a valid point. I mean, we were so up and down in the Rhodes era. We'd give up an open layup here and there. A team would break our press, give up an open layup, but then we'd be right back down. We'd get a layup, then we'd get a steal or a 10-second call. I think we have one 10-second call defensively this whole year. Seriously, it was against GW a week and a half ago. I think that's the only 10-second call that I've witnessed. So it's just lack of identity is what we've seen defensively so far.
I wanted to circle back because that's really that's my brand. It's just circling back on some from like a week ago. The recent additions of the roster, you mentioned Sean Bairstow. He just got healthy enough to play a few weeks ago. 14-12 in that win over LaSalle. And when you see those numbers along with his size at 6'8", seems like a real matchup problem. What else can we expect to see from him?
So he was kind of sold as, first of all, he's a grad transfer. So he played 4 years at Utah State, 2 years under Craig Smith, who's now coach at Utah, then 2 years under Odom. So he's a 100% fifth-year senior using his COVID year. He was kind of sold back in April. I guess it was March, April when he decided to transfer to VCU. He's kind of a point forward. Had a really high assist rate in the Mountain West last year. Utah State, they were an at-large team, 10 seed overall in NCAA. So, you're getting a good player from a good team. Not the greatest defender, but back in October, he played in VCU's black and gold game, which was the second week of October. And then sometime between then and the South Carolina secret scrimmage, he broke his foot, broke a bone in his foot. So he didn't play. We knew he was going to be out through at least the Orlando MTE and then he ended up not playing until the Maryland Legion Shore game. So he got 2 games in the non-con. He's a point forward. The guy he dribbles the ball very well. The first 5 games of the year, you saw glimpses. I mean, he played really well against Maryland Legion Shore. They're like 5th to the bottom in the KenPom in the nation. So it's kind of like, hey, good game, but you're playing against a team that's just not good. And then he looked bad in his first 3 A10 games. I mean, there's no way to get around it. Airballed 1 or 2 threes at George Mason last week. Then at LaSalle, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you LaSalle's great. It's a road conference game. They're out there playing basketball against everyone in the conference. He goes out and has 12 assists in a game, and that's kind of what we've been waiting for. Something he does really well, or at least he's been trying to do really well, and it finally happened against GW. He'll back down a defender. So he'll get the ball in the post, 12, 15 feet out, back him down. And in the game against LaSalle, he's 6'7". He jumps a little bit. He's shooting a jumper. I mean, a straight line jumper from 8 feet out, but he has very good interior passing. There was probably, I think, 4 of his assists were within the paint, just passing it to either Toby Lawal or Christian Furman for a dunk. So that's something I'd watch out for next Friday in BSU and SLU's game, is just interior passing by Sean Bairstow.
We're screwed.
So with him, oh, go ahead, Zach.
No, I just said we're screwed.
I know I go on KenPom a lot. I know SLU's got a top 100 offense. I know the defense is in top 100, so I don't think I need to say anything else about that.
So with Bairstow back in the lineup, and I know you're still trying to figure out where Bamisile fits and all of things, who are the guys who have kind of been bumped out of the rotation?
Good question. Oh, and something I want to tell you before, I mentioned that when I first hopped on, we don't play this week, so you're not going to hear much updates and stuff.
Right.
Zeb Jackson, our starting guard, tweaked his back against LaSalle. We're recording this pod, less than 36 hours after that game ended. He did not play in the second half. Throughout warmups last season, he would always have a small little back brace on. So my understanding is this is something that's happened before, but keep that in mind. We know how college coaches work. You're probably not going to hear anything all week long. It's going to be always, he's getting loose. Then Friday, he's either playing or he's not playing. So just keep that. I want to bring that up right now. I had no information.
Okay.
But to start the year, it was Zeb Jackson, Max Cholga, Michael Bell, freshman from England. He played in the French professional league last year. He's probably our best on-ball defender. Going through some growing pains offensively. He's a good athlete. He looks like a vintage VCU player that you guys have seen. Trevion Graham, Bradford Burgess way back in the CAA days. But he looks like a guy that plays at VCU. Jameer Watkins, real physical. But he started at 3, and then we never really started Toby Lawal or Christian Furman together. It would usually be Christian Furman at the 5, and then Kwani, he's a 5th-year senior from Cal. One thing I want to point out about him, he started the season over 16 from 3, and he shot 38% from 3 at Cal last year. He's 14 for his last 20 from 3, and he's 7 for 8 from 3 in A10 play. So he's a guy who's red hot right now, Kwani. But he'd start at 4, 5 would be Christian Furman. Since then, it started with Bamisile. Bamisile's been he's come off the bench he has not started a single game, and I like that. He's a volume scorer, so he's kind of a guy you bring a spark plug off the bench. And then with Bairstow playing, Fats Billups, our redshirt freshman, so he was a top 100 recruit last year, broke his hand in December, and my understanding is he could have come back last February, but it was one of those things we were winning the A10. It's like he comes back, he might play 2 minutes a game, so they just gave him an injury redshirt. He had a really good game against Penn State and Orlando, scored 23 points, 5 of 6 from 3. He's kind of been the odd man out since both Bairstow and Bamisile have been back. He didn't even scratch against George Mason, didn't play a single minute. And he kind of made a really bad pass against LaSalle on a fast break, and I don't think he played it for that either. So he's kind of been a guy that's kind of lost the rotation. He's probably my number one guy out there. Jason Nelson, transfer from Richmond, of all places, he's at Richmond for 2 years, a redshirt freshman year, transferred to VCU. He was kind of the odd man out against, I believe it was, he had a poor game against GW, so he was kind of the odd man out there. But then he played against Mason, he played like 22 minutes. So I would say Fats Billups number 1. Michael Bell, freshman who started a lot of games, he got minimal minutes against both Bonaventure and GW. And then our defense was atrocious. I mean, when I mean atrocious, we were 15th in conference KenPom defense after 2 games, and we're 7th now since we played George Mason and LaSalle because he's played 20 minutes a game. So that's something if I'm SLU, I watch that. Bell's a very good defender. I mean, I'll be honest, I would throw him on Jimerson and be like, hey, this isn't St. Joe's 2-3 defense from last week where we're just going to let Jimerson shoot wide open threes.
Whoa. You just suggested a 2-3 zone.
I was saying against GW would have been a good move.
No.
Yeah.
Walking
I'm saying
back. walking it back.
I would say put Bell and Jimerson, and this isn't Billy at St. Joe's just throwing a 2-3 defense when it was obvious Jimerson was unconscious. So
Right.
Bell's a very good defender, but he'll make 2 or 3 turnovers because he's just raw offensively. But to answer long-winded answer, but to answer your question, Fats Billups, who was playing pretty well in November and December, is kind of been the odd man out.
Yeah, gotcha.
No, it's funny when you mentioned we had a Kwani, so I appreciate you mentioning him. He was at Cal where the newest assistant Chris Harriman was before that staff was let go. So we actually thought he was going to end up here.
He visited St. Louis. I mean, I think it was I think VCU, St. Louis, and maybe 2 or 3 other schools. I mean, he's been good. He literally was ice cold to start the year. And he's not a great defender, so he's not a guy who's going to get 25 minutes a game, but he can shoot the lights out of the ball, and so he's been a solid addition. So
yeah, he didn't put up big numbers at Cal either, but we thought maybe Harriman would bring somebody with him, and he looked like the most likely one. So when he went to VCU, we were all kind of throwing our hands up like, oh, this better not come back to bite us.
We've thrown our hands up quite often. Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to understand. Look, SLU has not won at the Siegel Center.
Yes.
Is that ever, Pete? Is that ever?
Yeah, we've never won there. That's correct.
I know they're 0-7 in A10 play, and then y'all played there in the CBI in 2010. So I think it's at least 0-8. It's at least 0-8. I don't recall.
I don't think we ever played before that, but
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But yeah, if by some miracle that SLU finally gets their win at the Siegel Center, what's gonna have to go wrong for VCU?
All right, our first 2 A10 games, home against Bonovich or home against GW, and I mean, let's just face it, the A10 right now, Dayton looks like the front runner. After that, I mean, I couldn't even. I don't. VCU's probably VCU could go 9-9. They could go 12-6. They could go 6. I don't know. I don't really know what to expect. What I do know is we hosted Bonaventure and GW to start the year. 2 solid teams. Bonaventure probably has a higher ceiling than GW, or higher floor at least than GW. But those 2 teams shot 21-38 from 3 in those 2 games on our home floor. That's 55%. We go on the road to George Mason. George Mason a week ago was getting all the love. I mean, they had 2. They beat St. Louis last Saturday. The game before that beat LaSalle, starting off fresh. You know, they were 12-3. They went 0-15 from 3 in that game. And then in the last 2 games at George Mason at LaSalle, teams have gone 6-38. So same amount of shots, 21-38, then 6-38. I would say Jimerson. I mean, he's obviously the go-to because he's the best shooter on St. Louis. But St. Louis will probably need to be shooting threes, not just like Bonaventure GW, but in that frame. I think it needs something like that. And VCU's defense is just straight up, it's just bad like it was against St. Bonaventure and GW. Otherwise, I mean, like I said, our offense is pretty solid. It's, you know, a little outside the top 100. There's been growing pains with Barrister trying to get healthy and with Bell being a freshman. But I've seen St. Louis's defense. It has not been good this year, and I feel like Ford's still trying to figure out what to do there. So I'm not too worried about VCU scoring Friday night, but our defense has looked bad at times. It's looked good 2 games in a row. It's looked bad at times. And Jimerson, I mean, you guys obviously know he's a Richmond native. He last year, people forget that.
People do forget that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they'll only tell us 12 times Friday night that Shaka Smart, Will Wade, and Mike Rhodes used to coach at VCU. So just be ready for the ESPN telecast. But
have you? Are they going to say Havoc too? No.
They'll say Havoc.
They would never.
They'll say Mo Alley-Cox. You know,
do you know he plays football? Yeah. I didn't know that.
So our main host of Black and Gold Fan Pod, Adam Epstein, went to high school with Mo Alley. Like grew up with.
Does he have to change his last name now? Is that official? Like Epstein, does he have to change that now?
There's just go on his Twitter. It's a whole funny thing. I'll be honest with you. Like,
cool.
It's a whole fun. But no, he grew up with Mo. Like he knows Mo very well. No, it's Jimerson being a local guy. If he's feeling it, having a good game. You know, all of a sudden we're down 6 at halftime. It'll get nervous at the Siegel Center. I mean, the crowds have been solid this year and not great. The students come back they came back this weekend, so they'll be back. But SLU needs to shoot the ball well from 3. Otherwise, I don't think VCU. think VCU has the ability to blow any team out right now. I have a hard time seeing St. Louis win a road game.
You know what? Like you said that you don't have the ability to blow anyone out. And I'm not gonna lie, that's exactly what I've described St. Louis University like in my head the last like week. Because I've spent the last week trying to figure out where what is going on in this 8 years. And I just think like we have we can never punch up and we can never blow out the teams we should blow out. Like that is what's your perspective? Because it's interesting because I've always said, I think you replied that people don't fear SLU. They don't fear coming to SLU and playing us. Where do you stand on kind of the state of Billiken basketball from the outsider's perspective?
It's going back to when I was in the VC was in the CAA. I know Rick Majerus, what did he get hired? It was 708, I want to say, around that time.
Yes.
It would have been 07.
Yeah.
07. St. Louis has always kind of been a mid-major or not mid-major sleeping giant. It's a big city, very good facilities, good athletic program. I mean, you guys have a lot of good sports. I'm thankful VCU has a good athletic program too. Not non-football school. But VCU joined the A10. I was a freshman 2011-12, and that was our last year in the CAA. We joined the A10 when I'm a sophomore, and I mean, we're the two best teams. My sophomore, junior year, those first years in the A10, VCU and SLU were the two best teams. SLU was the team, the program we couldn't pass. We played you guys once in the regular season our first year, and then we lost on the road, and then you guys beat us in the A10 title game. And the next year, the A10 matched us up twice. We lost our first game at SLU, then we beat you guys at home. But you guys had dogs in your team. Obviously, Jordan or Jet, Dwayne Evans, and everyone. What's weird to me is I feel like there have been times when in the Ford era where the talent hasn't been that different than those teams. I like you guys have recruited well. It's just something's been missing. You look at SLU, especially the last 3 years. The 2021 season, you guys are the 4 seed. You handily beat. I think that was the year without fans in attendance.
Oh,
Mason,
no. Sorry, Mason was this past year.
Last year. You handily beat UMass in the A10 quarters. Then you get hammered by Bonaventure. 2 years ago, you guys are the 5 seed. I think you beat like LaSalle or someone in the first round. Then you beat Bonaventure in a great 4-5 game up in DC. I'm there. It was an awesome game. You guys got swept that year against Bonaventure, too. Then a great game. Jimerson can't miss. I mean, it was an awesome environment for a quarterfinal game. Get smashed by Davidson. Last year, you hammer Mason in the 4-5 game. VCU smashes you in the semifinals. So that's 3 years in a row of seeing St. Louis in the 4-5 game look really good in the quarterfinals, and then get smashed by the 1 seed. And kind of like what you're saying, you haven't punched up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's just kind of I think you hear a lot on like telecasts on ESPN. Not even A10 fans, but like pundits nationally will kind of group St. Louis, VCU, and Dayton together because they have Dayton and VCU. In terms of winning recently, definitely the top 2, but St. Louis has everything else. It just hasn't happened. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I feel like they have the ability to, but it's just not something hadn't clicked, and it's weird because I don't feel like, especially on those teams with French, I feel like the talent was comparable.
Yeah.
What's weird is those first few years of Forward, transfers like Bess, you guys had dogs, and I feel like you haven't had dogs in a couple of years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just said the juice is just slowly kind of trickled out of the program, and I really don't know what something's changed. I know there. I could, yeah. I'll get into it another time. Pete, any final thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I had penciled this game in as one that I would be attending because my brother lives in Richmond, and a couple seasons
I remember
ago,
that from last year.
Yeah, I was able to make it to the game at Richmond a couple seasons ago. Last year we played both VCU and Richmond on Tuesdays, so I couldn't make it work. Back to back.
VCU game is the last week of the season last year at Siegel Center.
Yep. And so I was hoping to make this one, but of course the game wound up being the only weekend that I had a prior engagement on and can't make it out there. So unfortunately I won't be able to make it out, say hello and see the Siegel Center for the first time because I've never seen a game there either. I've seen it from the outside.
The cafeteria is
yeah.
Haven't heard that joke.
Right, exactly.
Did you know?
I don't think we made that one either.
It's mainly Dayton fans.
I still don't get I still don't get what people love about UD Arena. That place kind of stinks. Um,
Yep. Yep. I'll go back on
Anyway.
Tuesday night and let you know, but I don't see it. But anyway, yeah, I'm disappointed I can't get down there. I wanted to add another A10 arena to my list, and maybe I would see some miracle us get our first win at Siegel, but I don't think this is going to be the year. So maybe I'll save it for another year. But anyway, good luck in this game, and I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. It's been a tough season for us, but I know it's been such a weird season for you guys too, kind of figuring things out that you never know what's going to happen in this league on any given night.
Oh yeah, I mean, heck, I mean, as while we record this podcast, St. Joe's was like St. Joe's. You know, you can hate all you want about Billy Link. They had a resume that was worthy of an at-large in the non-conference, and they've stunk for 3 straight games. But you guys are one of the teams that made them stink. But I mean, Rhode Island looked like they were headed for dead last 3-0. Duquesne, a top team, 0-3.
Makes no sense.
it's funny. I think we are the we always beat these teams that have that play well coming in, and they show one game ahead of us, they show some vulnerability, and then the next game the bottom just falls out of them. I just but and then they never win again. So it looks good leading in, and then it just completely turns to shit, and there's no we just beat a terrible team. That's all it looks like. So yeah. Anyway, Connor, thank you for coming on and taking the time to talk with us. It amazes me. You and Sully both have just so much more insight than I ever think about when I watch the game. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us.
I appreciate both you guys having me on. One final thing. I've never been to the city of St. Louis. I had 2 friends, my friends Philip and Claire. They're longtime Richmonders. Claire went to VC with me. She's from St. Louis, and they moved back to St. Louis this past summer. I have a flight booked and tickets bought for our February, I think it's Friday the 16th game, Friday 10 game at St. Louis. So as of right now, thank God there's no wintry weather like you guys are experiencing last week, but I will be at Shea Fetz in about, I think it's 4 weeks after the VCU SLU game this Friday.
I was going to get
Nice.
mad at you for Columboing that. Just one more thing. But that's a solid interjection. I'll give you that one. We'll see you up here, and if I happen to run into you, you can buy me a beer. No. Well, thanks, Connor, man. Hey, have a good night, and good luck once you play us.
Appreciate it, fellas.
See ya. Thanks.
Yeah.
See ya.
Pete. That was fun. Always good to talk to our frenemies.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, it
they're
is.
fun to banter with. What hasn't been fun so far though is our A10 Survivor entries.
Oof.
You're out. Wait, I have no idea. Hold on. No, nobody's out yet. Nobody's out yet.
We're not all the way out,
No, we're not. We're playing.
but
second
we're
place.
all in the second chance bracket.
Yes. Midtown Madness, the show's pick, lost Davidson URI. Mine won with UMass beating LaSalle. Peters lost with Fordham beating GW. And then our picks for this week, Pete.
Yeah, so as the podcast picked Dayton over SLU, so we may stay alive with that one. We'll see. But Zach, unfortunately, you slide to the second chance bracket with Fordham's win over St. Bonaventure, as discussed, and I picked St. Bonaventure to beat Rhode Island. And I got to say, after the early results for both of those teams, my confidence level is way down on that game. So, I can't. We're going to have to take a look at how many people are actually still left in this thing, because it is just a nightmare, I imagine, for everyone involved.
Yeah. And we're probably not going to tier them. That might be something like what we're going to see as we get interviews and whether or not we have room for the tiers. I'm working on with West Pine Bill something as well. So that might move over to that. Who knows? We'll still bring you our Survivor picks, and we'll at least pick a game every week,
Right.
whether or not we're in the show or not.
Right.
Pete, Dwayne Evans. This just broke, not really broke, but I didn't hear anything about it. But he played in the Japanese League's All-Star game.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And he's been over there for a while now, Zach. I
Yeah.
mean, he seems like he's enjoying it there, like really thriving. But anytime you get an all-star, no matter what the league is, that's pretty great. And hopefully, well, what team is he on right now? I'm
Oh,
hoping they
man.
weren't impacted by
What?
recent quake or anything.
Oh God, no, I don't think so because he was just in the game last night.
Okay,
Like it was the
gotcha.
only reason I knew about it was because somebody he posted on Instagram. Um, oh God, I don't actually. That's so weird. He doesn't actually get on uh Twitter, but it seems like I can't wait for like the Vinny Chase-esque Japanese commercials. I need some Dwayne Evans, advertisements.
So he plays right now. He plays for the Hiroshima Dragonflies.
I love their names, by the way. These are
Great.
fantastic.
They're great. Yeah.
Because we learned that Brian Conklin is headed to Japan as well. And he will play for the Ibaraki Robots, which I gotta say is like on brand
Yeah.
for like a Japanese sports team. Like they have perfected like co-opting American style sports team names
Right.
and making them Japanese. And Robots just screams Japan.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love the name, and I love the idea of maybe these two running into each other
Yeah.
in league play as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of fun with it. So yeah, it's great. They're in Japan. Evans has been there since 2020. Hiroshima is his second team. He played for Ryu. Where is it? Ryukyu. Oh boy.
Yeah, they're the Dragons.
Yeah, they're down in Okinawa. They're the
Oh,
Golden Kings.
oh,
But yeah,
the Golden Kings.
they've got kind of a
Is that
dragony looking
yeah,
logo.
that's okay. That's what it was.
Right.
Pete, on the women's side of things, the Billikens dropped a game to, I believe, league leading, at least the what looks to be the class of the A10 in St. Joe, 69-57. That was Tuesday the 9th, and there were a ton of missed opportunities in this one. I mean, the Billikens had so many opportunities where St. Joe's was just begging them to convert on some turnovers, and it felt like the Billikens would get the turnover and then just hand it right back to them.
Over and over and over. It was so frustrating. I think the worst one that I saw, there were about 3 minutes left, maybe a little less, like 2:45. SLU's down 6, right? They've roared back into this thing. And Markavia Shavers gets an offensive rebound, puts it back in, and then the refs called this phantom travel. Like they called the travel, and I actually rewound it and was like, there was just nothing there. I don't know what they saw. I don't know why they called it. But then, of course, St. Joe's hits a 3 at the other end on the next play, just a few seconds later. And that's the game. 5-point swing when you're down 6. And instead of being down 4, now all of a sudden you're down 9. And yeah, that was it. They just couldn't come back after that. So that kind of struck me as the worst one because it was such a bad call and dramatic swing. I think, Zach, they just got into too big a hole in the first half, right? 16-8 after one, they couldn't hit anything, and then 37-20 at halftime. Now, we say over and over again, this team is never really out of it, but they were ultimately kind of a couple possessions from actually being able to swing it. You're on mute too.
Of course I am, because
I don't know why you.
Anyway, no, I thought they were. I don't think they were out of this one. I think again, I thought they had enough turnovers for that they had these fast breaks that just went awry. And I
Right.
don't really know. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know who to blame other than like just don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I thought they had those possessions that's to swing the game and they didn't convert on them. Kyla McMakin, 16 points, 7 of 21, 1 of 6, 1 of 1, 7 rebounds. You'd like a little bit more efficiency.
Yep.
I think that's what we were hoping a little bit from this year. Shavers was 14 and 8. Julia, 7, 6 and 8. Triple nickel. Shavers, Kennedy, Ken Calhoun, all had foul trouble for each. Billikens couldn't hit from outside. They went 3 of 18. SLU had 19 more attempts at the rim than St. Joe's, but they each made 23. Again, I think SLU had the opportunities, and the offense wasn't there.
Yeah.
SLU's 16-3 advantage on the offensive glass just didn't turn into enough. 13-2 in second chance points. Yeah, again, this team style, it's fun, and we saw how much fun it can be in the next game. But in a game like this, the sloppiness rears its head, and you aren't able to get. I'm telling you, all these turnovers that they took from St. Joe's, they could have had 20 more shots than St. Joe's in this game.
Well, they did, right? I mean, they
Well,
had
I mean,
19 more.
sorry.
Yeah.
They could have had 25 more.
Oh, sure.
They could have
sure.
had 30 more. Not
Yeah.
30 more. That's kind of crazy, but like they could have at least five more shots.
It's just what stands out, though, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like you make the same number of shots, but you take 19 more. It's just like that's just leaving so much on the table, so many opportunities. They've just got to hit those. But yeah, when you're that cold, I don't know. You just can't overcome it sometimes.
The Arch Baroness Cup, Pete. Are we okay with this nickname? Is it? I mean, we talked about how the bronze boot with the women's soccer team. They don't like that. It is the Arch Baron Cup, but how are we naming this?
I don't know. This was the first I've seen Arch Baroness. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were using women's Arch Baron Cup before, but Arch Baroness is I don't know. I kind of that was a little cleaner. It's funny. I like it, but yeah, we'll see if it sticks. I don't know yet.
74-70 win versus Dayton, and this should have been. You talk about a rivalry game. And how they should always be competitive as hell. Yep. But I feel like I would have liked, a little bit more of a shut the door on Dayton in this one. And I thought the Billikens could have, and they kind of let Dayton back in.
They sure did. I thought this one was going to be completely out of hand. They let Dayton back into it. They actually got to within 2 before Kyla McMakin hit one of 2 free throws with 15 seconds left. And then Julia Martinez came out with a huge steal with 5 seconds left and hit one of those last 2 free throws to ice it. Really, Dayton kind of chipped away, but they did have an 8-0 run at one point in the third quarter. And leading up to those final plays that I just mentioned, they had a 6-0 run late in the fourth, and that was helped by 5 straight missed free throws by SLU. So a lot of chances for SLU to put it away, even after Dayton had chipped away at that margin. And SLU just never did until the very end. So that's frustrating. But a big reason for this, Zach, is the glass. Dayton out-rebounded SLU by 15, 41-26. And a lot of those were offensive rebounds. And a lot of those were in the second half to kind of help close the gap. They actually had more offensive rebounds than defensive, 22-19. And one of their players, Ariana Smith, was the main culprit. She had 10 offensive boards for UD. I've been saying it for a while now, but SLU just has to get better on the defensive glass. It's been an issue all year, and it's so hard to watch them not close out a big win like what should have been a very big win by just letting rebounds get away from them.
Yeah. Luckily, SLU shot better than they did against St. Joe's. They had a slash line of 527, 333, and 650. 5 Billikens were in double digits. McMakin had 17 points and 5 rebounds. Shavers had 15 and 5. Peyton Kennedy had 13. Julia Martinez with 12 points, no rebounds to go with 3 assists, 3 steals, and 6 turnovers. Kennedy Calhoun finished with 11 points. Highly unusual for Julia Martinez.
Yeah, I know. Lately, she's been triple nickel pretty much guaranteed, and then some. So yeah, to not come up with any rebounds, it was a team issue here. A little bit of a concerning moment, and I haven't heard any updates yet, Zach, but Brooklyn Gray, she was the only Billiken off the bench to score in this game with 6 points in 13 minutes before leaving with an injury, and it was a really awkward one. She had it on a fast break, and just kind of came up lame, limped into the second row behind the basket. And what would have been a layup was a turnover. She did need help to get to the locker room. So I don't know if you've heard anything, but kind of a scary moment.
Yeah, I haven't. I watched that, like, because I am watching multiple things at once, and that happened to be, I watched that like as it happened. I just happened to turn and she was just about to hit the lane, and
Yeah.
then she just stopped. I'm like, ah, shit.
That was at the end of a really nice play too. It was a turnover that was like bang, bang, bang pass to get it up to her, streaking up the floor. And had she converted that, that would have been maybe the play of the game, just because of how many hands it touched and how fast they moved the ball. But she just really awkward.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Almost like it was broken foot-esque. Like it felt
Yeah.
like it felt like Parker a little bit.
right. And I
Kinda
didn't want
that-
to go. Yeah,
Because
right.
because it wasn't like usually if you tear an ACL, like I don't know, I would have expected her to maybe go to the ground or kind of a little bit more out of it, because it felt like she was just kind of like it was so localized pain, like more
Right.
of like I don't know, like it just felt like a sting, and then she
Yeah,
couldn't walk on it.
I'm hoping it's like a muscle strain or something like that. It was just hard to tell. Hard to tell.
Overall, again, just a shame that it wasn't a wire-to-wire blowout. Would have been a lot of fun. I thought it was going to be. I was tweeting. I was tap dancing in the first quarter. Thanks a lot, ladies. Come on.
Yeah, they've got to close it out. They can't let teams
just
back
for
in.
my own personal shame.
Right.
Again, it would have been a even bigger boost, but you escape with the rivalry win and move on. 2-3 in the league. Next up will be Wednesday with George Mason at George Mason, and then Saturday the 20th at George Washington. I'm still calling them the
extended
Colonials.
DC. You haven't switched to Revs
No,
yet?
I refuse. I'm getting a shirt. I'm getting a shirt. I'm still calling them the Colonials. I'm copyright infringing on Paul Lucas. Does he still even write? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's gonna do it, Pete. I think that's it. I think we've been doing this for too long today.
It's been a long show, but hopefully it's a good show. I think we got a lot jammed in here this week, and we'll have plenty to bring people next week too.
It's so cold. I'm wearing a beanie inside, people. Don't forget to hit the comments section on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, rate. As always, Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.